Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me from in the world today. You're very welcome, and this is my first Mindful Monday video live on Facebook. Today I'm in the very beautiful wildlife reserve in Northern Ireland, very sunny, beautiful Northern Ireland that we have today, and I'd like you to come with me on a journey thinking about the lifeology principles of mind, thought and consciousness. And today, Mindful Monday, thinking about your mind. Whenever you come live on the programme with me here, just give me your thumbs up or some hearts so that I know that you're around. And I'm just going to let you see them at the moment. And you can see the lovely wildlife and the bird scene it is too. So let's thinking about the first topic of today, the meal and the menu. Whoever that is, he's just joined. If you want to ID yourself by giving me the thumbs up or send me some hearts, thank you for taking the time to join me. What I want to talk about this Mindful Monday is about your mind. And the meal is not the menu. That's the first thing I want to share with you. If you think about when you go into McDonald's or, well, let's just say, think of McDonald's. What do you conjure up? Right away, you have an image, a big M. Hey Ethel, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. By the way, if anybody's got any questions about what I'm talking about, just tap them in and I'll get to answering them. So yeah, we're talking about the meal is not the menu. And I've just asked you to think about McDonald's, and right away you'll have in your mind's eye a big yellow M in a circle. Same thing when you go into McDonald's, you're faced with big bright, bold pictures and images of the various options of food that you can have from McDonald's. And you decide whether you're going to have a Big Mac or you're going to have maybe a lovely yummy apple pie. And when that is delivered to you on a tray, it absolutely meets the picture of what you've seen on the menu when you first came into the restaurant. If we translate that into the meal, that's our current reality. In terms of our mind, if we think about the meal that comes before us, that's reality. If you think of a menu, when you go into a restaurant, you get a descriptor, you get an idea in your mind's eye of what kind of food you're going to be served. And I'm sure you've all been in situations where whenever that meal is put in front of you, it doesn't fit your picture. It's not what you were expecting. And if we translate that, what does that mean in your life? Well, there's a lot of things that happen in your life that don't just fit your picture. Maybe a partner isn't fitting your picture in terms of their behaviour. Maybe a work colleague, well, they're not quite fitting your picture as to what your expectations are. And these situations can go on ad infinitum. The point that I want to make is that just because something doesn't fit your picture doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't fit your picture, that's all. It doesn't fit your expectations. So that's the first thing to think about on this Mindful Monday is if something's not fitting your picture, that's not necessarily the fault of the other person or the situation that you find yourself in. Hey, welcome. If you just joined us, we're talking Mindful Monday and we're talking about the meal is not the menu. If anybody listening wants to give me a thumbs up, because I'm sitting here in a park all by myself. Hopefully if someone comes around to see me talking to a phone, I'll not be fitting their picture. But to just think of a situation in your life perhaps at the moment that's not fitting your picture, rather than getting yourself all worked up and all stressed and angst about it, just simply tell yourself it's not fitting your picture. That's all. Think about it slightly differently. Remember, if you're living in the feeling of your thinking, you're just one thought away from a different feeling. The second thing I want to talk to you about today on this Mindful Monday is about fear. I was listening to a story on the radio this morning about anxiety and about the number of women particularly who suffer from anxiety, and more so those women under 35. And I got to thinking, well, what causes anxiety? Generally speaking, it's fear. And it's fear of something, not being needed, not being good enough, not being loved, not having enough. Whatever it is, it's all fear-based thinking. So if you go back to the thinking process and your thoughts, hey, thanks for joining us on this live video on Facebook today, where I'm in the lovely wildlife park in sunny Northern Ireland. Sunnier than usual here, which is great. Wouldn't be every day I could sit out in a park and chat to you. But just to start to think about your fear-based thinking, if you think about whatever happens, I'm going to learn from it. Think about, have you got anything at this moment in time, a decision that you need to make, but you're particularly fearful about it? Just simply write it down and think to yourself as you write it down, everything that's happening is meant to be happening. That's what we in coaching terms call an affirmation. So if you think about everything that's happening is meant to be happening, and just say that 10 times around whatever it is you've just written down as a fear that you have. Notice after about the 5th time, the anxiety and the fear kind of disappears a little bit. By the time you get to the 10th time of saying that everything's happening is happening for a reason, you become much less fearful. So that's the second thing, to think about is your fear-based thinking. In your mind's eye, if something's not meeting your picture, you may also be feeling fearful as a result around it. And the third thing that I want to talk to you about today is about making up the future. Now, how many of you have plans for the next, 5 years? Hey, thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time to join. Ethel, any other people on there? Yeah, thanks for the thumbs up. Loving that. That's great. Yeah, that makes me feel I'm not just sitting here talking to the birds. That's good. We're loving that. And again, if you've got any questions, anything that you want to ask me, feel free. I'm happy to serve you and minimise what may be causing you any angst or anxiety. Hey, Caroline Fleck, the Downtown Radio is a wonderful radio presenter. Hopefully you tune in and listen to Caroline. She's filling in all over the place these days. Hi, Summer Augusta, thanks for joining. And just to recap, we're talking on this Mindful Monday about the meal is not the menu. So if you go into a restaurant and you've ordered something and when it comes it doesn't fit your picture, it's about not getting yourself into a tizzy. The other thing to think about as well, we're talking about fear-based thinking. What is that exercise there? Write down something that you're fearful about, or something that's happening to you that's causing you fear right this moment. And then just tell yourself the mantra, everything's happening is happening for a reason. Now sometimes I like to say to people, everything that's happening is happening for a reason that's not yet apparent. Because in terms of your greater and higher good, things are happening to you which one day they'll all make sense. Maybe it's a bit rocky, it's a bit anxious in terms of your current circumstances, but one day it will all make sense. So the third thing I want to talk to you about is creating your future. I know in coaching terms we're always sort of getting people to visualise and think about what the future is, but I was actually reading something this morning from my coach Michael Neal, and I just thought I would share it with you. It's about you're making up the future. And if you think about it, sometimes the future that you make up is scary, or sometimes the future that you make up is very exciting and very endearing. And he was telling the story about a client of his who had left his day job and was going to follow his dream around the world, and suddenly things weren't fitting his picture, things weren't adding up to the wonderful future he thought he was creating. But whether you think up good, well, I always say whether you make up good thoughts or bad thoughts, they're yours to choose. But whether you make up a scary future or a bright future, really the only thing that you have is in the moment right now. So, hey Beth, good to have you along. Thanks for joining. Anybody got any questions, please feel free to type them in, and I'm happy to answer them. We've just been talking about the meal is not the menu, Beth, and obviously about fear-based thinking causing a great deal of anxiety, particularly for women. But if you know that any of your feelings that you have are just a shadow of your thoughts, then you're only one thought away from feeling differently. So to think about in terms of making up your future, you only are guaranteed this moment. And if you are present to this moment, then let the future take care of itself. You know that they say you make plans and then life happens. Well, that really is true. And I like to say to people, if you're going to make up shit, make up good shit. But either which way, your happiness doesn't depend on the future. Happiness is an inside job. People think about, you know, it's their paycheck that makes them happy, or it's their kids that make them happy, or it's their partner that makes them happy. It's actually your thinking. You know, lots of people have been out and about today, and lots of people are just, oh, it's great, the sun's shining, you feel so much better. Why do you feel better? Because the sun's shining. Happiness is an inside job. Hey Stephen, how are you? I'm glad I make you feel wonderful. You are wonderful. You don't need me to make you feel wonderful. It's an inside job. So just to recap, we've been talking about the meal is not the menu. We've been talking about fear creates anxiety, and that's a feeling. If you're living in a feeling of anxiety and fear, then you're living in the feeling of your thinking. So change your thinking. And people will say, oh, that's easy for you to say. You know what? Everybody's capable of having good thoughts, and it's not the sunshine, it's not your kids, it's not your paycheck that makes you happy. That's an outside in kind of way of thinking. And what we're about here is talking about it's an inside outside. Inside job, happiness. Thanks very much for those thumbs. I know I'm not just sitting here talking to the birds and the ducks on this wonderful sunny day in Northern Ireland. Anybody got any questions? I'm happy to answer them with you, but one of the things I read today, and I thought it was a really nice metaphor. It was about a grandfather and his granddaughter had just got inherited a greyhound, and the grandfather sat down. Hey, thanks for the thumbs up there, Mohammed. Thanks for joining. It's great to have you along. We're talking on Mindful Monday. And we're talking about things not fitting your picture. But anyway, this grandfather sat down and he was chatting to this greyhound, and he said, hey greyhound, you've given up racing? And the greyhound said, yeah, I have. And he said, oh, why have you given up racing? Were they bad to you? And he said, no, they were very good to me. And he said, had you stopped winning? And he said, no, I was still winning. And he said, well, why did you give up? You know, if you were winning and you weren't tired and you weren't injured, why did you give up? And he said, well, I gave up because I realised the rabbit wasn't even alive. So that got me to think about how many of us are chasing something that isn't even alive. That rabbit round the greyhound racetrack, it's just a piece of wood. And it's not real, yet it is incentivizing these dogs to run fast and win hard. So think about for yourself today, what rabbits are you chasing? What rabbit hole are you down that has you think that you're not good enough, you're not happy, you need more, when in fact, actually you have everything that you need right now. Ask yourself, have you got a roof over your head? Have you got food in your cupboards? Have you got clothes to put on your back? And if the answer to that is yes, if you can quiet your mind for long enough, then some intuitive thought will come to you that will lead you to the next step of your journey on this journey of life. So just to recap, we're talking about the meal is not the menu. Something might not be fitting your picture, but that's okay. It's about the thinking you have around it that causes the anxiety. Secondly, fear is what creates anxiety. So get out of your fear-based thinking. Whatever happens, you'll learn from it. Whatever happens, you'll handle it. And finally, to think about what rabbit are you chasing? What futile rabbit are you chasing today? It might be some colleague hasn't met your picture today. It might be one of your kids haven't fit your picture so far today. Whatever it is, just let it go. Because happiness is an inside job. Most of us are living in an outside-in way of thinking, but actually it's what's going on in the inside that will reflect what goes on outside. So look, thank you for taking the time to join me today. It's been a pleasure to have your company, and I'll be back again with my Thoughtful Thursday on Thursday. So in the meantime, have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.